Hello and welcome to another jungle tutorial. In this one we're going to look at 5 marks of a good jungler, things you should be paying attention to in every game you play. Hopefully this will help you all improve and have a strong ending to Season 7, as well as a strong beginning to Season 8. So if you enjoy tutorials like this, please hit the subscribe button and let me know what else you might like to see. This isn't by any stretch of the imagination an exhaustive list of every possible detail a jungler needs to know to reach challenger and pro level play, but more 5 things that you should be aware of through every phase of the game, and things that you can use to make sure that you're improving consistently. Alright, to begin, in this first point, we're going to talk about presence and early pressure. You need to make sure that in each and every game, you focus on what your goals are for that particular game, and continue to implement good habits. Do you consistently look at your lanes? Do you know which lanes are gankable? Are you tracking summoner spells burned from those ganks that you do? Where is the enemy jungler? What camps has he been farming? And what camps could you potentially counter jungle? These are the sorts of questions you should always keep in the front of your mind in every ranked game. Use op.gg to see which lane is on a streak, winning or losing, or maybe if they're on a champ that they aren't very experienced on. This can allow you to exploit that and get your teammates ahead. First thing is to be aware of which side of the map you're on, if you need a leash, and which buff you want to start. This will determine your first pass and your first ganks. Remember, observe which laners appear late to their lanes so you can know where the enemy jungler started. Observe the state of your top and your mid to see if you can perhaps invade. Grab that early scuttle crab for vision also. While farming, use your F keys or click on the minimap, as I sometimes do, to see which lanes could potentially be pushing soon, and then determine the path you could use to gank. If that sounds like a lot of things you need to be keeping track of in the early game, that's because it is. I've put a few examples on screen now, plus the text on the left, so you should be able to read along in case it was too quick for you. But be aware of everything that you need to accomplish in the first 5 to 6 minutes of the game. It isn't just farm and wait for your ultimate. You need to be consistently looking at the minimap and using your mouse or F keys to look around the game. See what's going on, see where someone might burn a flash, because guess what? Your team doesn't always communicate when someone spells a burn. They don't always communicate when these little things happen that could give you an advantage in a gank. And so it's important for you to do that for them. Keep an eye on the lanes and don't assume that you can just stare at your wolves while you farm them. I mean, you don't need to. If you have long cooldowns and use auto-attacking, look around the map, see where you could make a play. And this is vital information if you're invading or if you're going to be invaded by the enemy jungler, so you need to be aware of where top, mid, and bot are pushing or are being pushed in these situations, because you definitely don't want to invade if the enemy's hard pushing against your team, because if the enemy jungler finds you, you're going to be collapsed on and you're going to feed double buffs, you're going to die, and you're going to give the enemy a lead just because you weren't paying attention. And instead of being one to counter jungle and apply pressure to the jungler 1v1, you could also be the one that's heavy ganking. Make sure to punish enemies who don't respect vision, and also camp as hard as you can when you do burn those summoner spells. Don't come once and leave, repeat and abuse. All these things really help give you a strong presence in the early game with a lot of pressure. If your team can recognize that and you can tilt the enemy team to the point that they're saying, oh, where's my jungler? Why is the enemy jungler always doing all these things? Then that's great. You're in their minds, and that's what you want heading into the second phase of the game. The next mark of a good jungler is how well you read the enemy jungler. Do they say you are everywhere in all chat when you counter gank and then counter jungle them again and again? Good. That's what you want. You're in his head and you're reading him like an open book in your nightstand that you don't actually read because you're playing League. Yes, we already spoke about counting CS, but this is crucial information about locating the enemy jungler and where he could or could not be. You need to use this information in terms of how you plan to gank, and counter jungle. Champs that are not good at taking Ramtus will usually leave that camp up early, and if you can ward around their red so that you know their pathing, you can easily take that camp under their nose. If you and mid have a successful invade and mid is pushing, keep the pressure up and move over together to deny camps and irritate the enemy. Also bear in mind, if you walk into the enemy jungle and see no camps, say on his top side, that means his next logical location is on the blue side of the map. You have gained information through deduction, and now you're able to play around whether it's a gank top or ganking bottom. Use scuttle crabs, vision plants, and deep wards to extrapolate pathing also, and make an educated assumption on whether the goal is ganking, counter jungling, or sneaking a baron or dragon. Knowing and communicating where the enemy jungle is will give you a lead in that early game for your team as well as you, and you should aim to anticipate the enemy's location so whenever they're trying to make a play, you can make a counterplay around that. This will, despite their best efforts, allow you to come out ahead. Remember that your laners are what matters. If your lanes are all winning and there's nothing for you to gank, without great cost, simply find the enemy jungler and keep him from ganking so your lanes can continue to stomp, set up dives, take first towers, and exploit that your laners are ahead. A lot of people will say to you, oh, well, you won because, your laners are winning, you didn't have to do anything. A good jungler knows that he can still hard carry a game in this situation because the game isn't over in the first 10 minutes in solo queue. You have to translate a winning laning phase as a jungler into the mid game. Now, the third mark of a superior jungler is his or her respect and ability to maintain vision control. I know this isn't the most exciting segment, but it is absolutely vital as a jungler that you respect this. No, this doesn't mean you need to get Tracker's Knife every game, but feel free to do so if it suits your playstyle and champion. For example, some champions are simply better with skirmishes and can really utilize that combat smite, but others are enablers and should therefore enable vision with trackers. Something like Maokai and Warwick are good examples, as Warwick can easily make use of that red or blue smite, and Maokai really is great at moving around quickly with Moby Boots to gain vision as well as with his point and click CC counter gank. And remember that picking up that enhanced scanner at level 9 is crucial. Getting it earlier is definitely helpful as well. As soon as you pick up your Tracker's Knife, you need to grab that scanner. Vision control doesn't mean placing one pink and a few greens and forgetting about it. It means continuously having a control ward up no matter what, especially as a jungler, because your job is also to maintain knowledge and information about the enemy jungler. Also while denying the enemy's vision through scanning and vision plans so that you can actually set up ganks and map movement without them seeing everything that you do. Vision is information. Vision you have that the enemy doesn't is an advantage. Don't underestimate, like so many low MMRs tend to do, the importance of vision. When you see the jungler coming from his raptor camp because you put a ward down there, and then you see him head towards bot because of the pink ward you put on the river, you can make a play around that, whether that would be taking his farm from the other side of the map, moving over to counter gank if you're fast enough, ganking another lane, or taking an objective. Without this information, you're simply guessing to where he is, and if there's no other indicator like we discussed in the previous section, what are you going to do? Vision allows you to observe rotations, TPs, and collapses that you can react to and defend rather than being steamrolled. If you often find your team is losing because the enemy shows up with more numbers top lane after they took the bottom tower, they have better vision and reactions than your team does. Even if your team doesn't want to ward, continuously asking them to do so and doing your part so you can lead by example is imperative. And remember, as a jungler, vision is the most important thing about your decision making. And yes, people will talk about jungle intuition rather than raw vision, but jungle intuition comes as a byproduct of experience and making that vision in the past so you can see what people tend to do in most situations. So please, I want to see you guys buying 5-6 pinks a game minimum. I want to see you clearing wards as much as possible, and I want to see you asking your team to help you do that, because vision will lead you to many victories because it allows you to do things that you couldn't otherwise do if you have no idea where the enemy actually is. Alright, now let's move on to the fourth mark of a good jungler, and this is objective control. It's obviously a vital thing for any jungler. In this instance, we usually mean epic monster control along the lines of Drakes, Rift Heralds, and Barons. However, this can also mean pushing for that first tower gold from a successful gank or dive, maybe defending towers when your laner either died or went back to base. You have to help on both accounts. If you're walking by mid and your laner has gone back, sit there, absorb that XP, and last it under tower so you don't de-push the wave. You don't have the wave pushing into the enemy when your laner gets back. Help them. Don't punish them unnecessarily because you just wanted some extra gold quickly. Depending on what champ you're playing, it's imperative you understand the capabilities and role of your champion in that game, especially when it comes to comboing abilities with smite to secure barons and dragons, as well as when your team is ahead or able to wave clear, how strong is your split push. If you're playing Echo, it'll be pretty strong if you've got AP with Lichbane. Be aware that during the mid and late game, if you show in a lane or over a ward that's far away from a crucial objective like Baron, you can give the enemy that information they need to take it away from you. You are the singular most important factor when it comes to locations around Barons and Dragons. You need to know that it's your job to be present with Smite Up and wards when your team are doing the Baron dance. Also, be aware of the enemy jungler's levels, his ability to steal, and your ability to deal with it or to counter it. If your Smite does happen to be down from a previous fight, communicate this crucial information to your team so that you know if you can actually secure the Baron or if you should turn to zone the enemy jungler if he's around the area. And if you haven't already realized from the tone of this video, information communicated from you to your team is of the utmost importance as a jungler. You have so much impact on the game in terms of vision, objective control, collapses, rotations, map movements, and everything, and it's important that you let your team know what you're doing. You don't drive around the road without indicating that's just dangerous. Same thing in League. A dangerous jungler who doesn't communicate and does random things can end up feeding unintentionally because the laner just has no idea what you're doing. Finally, let's talk about our role in teamfights, the 5th mark of a great jungler. Now, we've discussed this in videos before, but please understand your roles in teamfights and what you do around the mid to late game, especially after crucial barons and tower takedowns. If you really need to peel, peel. If your team already has immense peel, but no one can get onto that enemy backline, and you happen to be playing Shadow Assassin's Kane from the guide recently uploaded on my channel, see if you can get off a nice flank to take them out, and cause that suction effect we talked about. This will allow your team to clean up fights or easily win them if that means that your team can easily handle the enemy front line and protect your carries while you've actually killed their backline. Before any fight, be aware of TP advantages, summoner spell advantages, as well as where you have vision control. Don't wander into dark areas for no reason. If you're full build, don't go take the raptor camp while the enemy is engaging your team. That's unnecessary. Focus objectives and understand that after every fight you win, your job is to secure those, not go farm some more or buy that final 1000 gold or an upgrade. If you can push in hibs or even end, make sure you're communicating this, ping your spell cooldowns and let your team know in advance what you plan on doing around them. Oftentimes as say Ornn or Maokai, I will use my ult simply to split the enemy team or CC them while I hard peel my carries. Ornn for example does percentage max HP damage, and this is great against things like Nasus and Cho, who would usually destroy the ADC, so make sure you're the one telling your team the plan and what you intend to do. I cannot stress this enough. Junglers will often just flash engage the enemy without consideration of your ADCs or mid laners, thinking that the support has this or the top lane tank has this. Your role will change from game to game depending on the team compositions and who you are playing. Be aware of this. But most importantly, having your objective-focused mindset and a secure knowledge in what you hope to accomplish in teamfights will make you a tier above the rest of the junglers at your MMR and give you that option to hard carry in a variety of ways, not just by getting 15 kills and one-shotting the ADC. I will probably do a more detailed video on teamfighting and break down the possibilities, but for now, hopefully this is enough to guide you as the season ends in this vital area. And as a final note on teamfighting, if you win a teamfight, and they're long death timers, grab some towers, grab a baron, grab a dragon, communicate this and ping it to your team. Spam ping. Spam ping is very useful to draw people's attention. One ping will never do enough. Make sure you're spam pinging that open inhib so your team knows what they should be doing. Alright, if you can hit all these 5 marks, I guarantee you should start to climb, and I hope give you more self-conscious approach to the game. Make sure you have these things in your mind throughout the different stages of the game, as well as in Champ Select, and constantly be honest about which of them you need to work on, or which ones you're succeeding at. Thank you very much for watching. Please jungle that like button, smite the subscribe button for more jungling tutorials, and as always, I will see you all in the next tutorial.